Patties, and I'm calling this Back Bay Architectural Commission Violations Committee public meeting to order at 4:30 on February 12th, 2025. You can participate in this hearing by going to our Zoom meeting link and our agenda posted online at https://www.boston.gov/public-notices/16313-541, or by calling 301-715-8592 and entering ID number 962-4059-6096 #. You can also submit written comments or questions to backbayac@boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this hearing online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Back Bay Architectural Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside the commission's purview. Okay.
Right. Thank you, Genia. And we have the commissioners present for the members of the subcommittee. We have Rob Weintraub and Genia Dimitriadis, and we also have Commissioner Tom High present.
Okay, and
And
I think our violation is 358 Marlborough Street, which is continued from our meeting last month on the 11th. Or actually December on the 11th. Is anyone here from 358?
Hi, this is Guy Grassi. I'm the
Hi,
architect
Guy.
here, and I see Powell is on with the development company. I don't know. I assume you're, oh yeah, Thomas Callis is there as well.
Okay. And then Joe, do you want to summarize where we are since that meeting in December?
yeah, I'll just to kind of give a little background again. This was a project that was approved by the commission back in February of 2023. There was extensive work that was reviewed and approved. But the violation that we reviewed back in December was the unapproved alteration to the rear of the building. And when we reviewed this project back in February of 2023, a rear addition was proposed, and that part of the project was denied. And here is what the rear elevation looked like prior to any work taking place. And then this is how it looks, or I imagine it looks today. I haven't been out today, but the violation was the extension of these two existing windows. And then in the course of that hearing, we discovered that 2 units, HVAC units, were installed at the patio that were not approved. And then in addition, the work at the roof was completed as it was not approved. So there was a green roof that was approved, and planters were installed instead. And then you can kind of see here a privacy screen was added. You can see my cursor at the side elevations. And at the rear rooftop, 2 HVAC units were approved, but 3 have been installed. So we had asked Guy to come back with as-built photos and drawings, and then for some suggestions of how to resolve these violations. So Guy, do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to continue?
If you don't mind, I can.
Sure. Okay. So I'll turn it over to you, Guy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for having us. The You can see my screen, I assume now?
Yep. No, not yet.
Oh, no, let me try that again.
Just see you.
Sure. How about that?
Yep.
Okay. So what we have, is the drawings, and I think we've modified them since the last meeting and added some information. The the upper drawing is, and I know, Joe, you haven't been able to find it, and I haven't been able to find it either, but we had submitted these drawings, these because there was provisos with the approval, and there wasn't really a design for the garden, because it was half filled with in the original application, it showed the addition. We had modified the drawings and sent them back to you, and I can't, for whatever reason, I can't seem to find the email, unless I maybe mailed them to you. I just don't remember how we did it. But anyway, you referred to the drawings that were modified when you issued the certificate of appropriateness. So you must have gotten something, but I just don't have a record of it. But the drawings that we created showed this garden and the fence. It showed brick here and just a garden here. We hadn't developed a landscape plan for the garden at that point in time. It showed one door here, a window converted to a door, and it showed the replacement of the door here. This drawing shows what was actually built. So we can, and then it's also showing what we're proposing to do differently. And the same thing happened in the rear elevation. We had submitted, I believe we submitted this, but you must have gotten something that showed one of these openings being modified to a door. None of this is visible from the public way, but none of this anyway, or the garden. And then the replacement of this door. And again, this is what was constructed, the two doors. So that's kind of where we're at. The proposal and what the developer's willing to do, or is proposing to do, I should say, do whatever it is that you folks want us to do at the end of the day. And we recognize that this was all a screw up, and we apologize for having to be here in the first place. Obviously the parking area was brick paved. There's some subtle differences in the way the parking area was done. That wasn't cited for a violation. We're just bringing it up. We had shown like a brick border, and there's a granite border that was installed. We have some photos. I think your photo shows that just a little bit, but essentially the whole thing is brick paved, and the sidewalk was paved and all that stuff. And the fence was put up, and all the enclosure is pretty much exactly what was proposed. In the garden, there was a different or a paver shown or installed, a porcelain paver, and the brick was not installed, and then the landscape was developed. There was also a fireplace that's essentially a piece of furniture. It's a stone fireplace that was dropped in, so it's not built in, but it's a piece of, whatever you want to call it. And that's all below the fence and below the wall line. This is, well sunken down into the ground. They would like to keep that. There was a plant bed installed here, and their plan, what they'd like to be able to do is enlarge those planters and plant a pair of trees in this location. And Thomas has spoken to Lori Thomas, and is more than happy to work with the garden club folks about what to actually plant in here and where exactly it should go. But this was our proposal, was to plant 3-inch caliper magnolia trees in these planters. But again, they're willing to do whatever, Margaret and Lori want them to do in terms of planting out the garden or planting some of these trees. The photo shows the enclosure for the 2 heat pumps. Apparently what happened is the mechanical engineer and working with the developer came up with a different plan. We had submitted two heat pumps, one for each unit, and apparently they were gonna, what they had to use when they engineered them finally was too big to install up on the roof, so they went to 5 smaller ones, and there wasn't room on the roof to put all of the heat pumps, so they located 2 in the garden. And again, you can't see them from anywhere unless you're up, an upper floor looking down into the garden, but they've nicely enclosed them in here, and they obviously would like to keep them. And then of course the 2 doors. When you get to the roof level, they recognize that they shouldn't have done the wood screen wall, and they'll remove them, and they have no issues with that. They're going to take them out. This was the drawing that was submitted, which had guardrails, metal guard railings, which have been installed. And what they'll do is they would like to just install a guardrail along this edge, same type. It would be lower than the wood fence that's there. And then a little section of guardrail here, per the original application, I believe. And then the planters that are now currently just sitting on the roofing out here, in fact, they've actually moved them already, are proposed to be on the deck. So they're not outside the railing as they are now. And then the 2 heat pumps that were approved were essentially here and here. And the third one is a similar size, and it's in the middle. And obviously they'd like to be able to keep that where it's installed. It's no more visible than the other 2. It's slightly visible as you go up. I forget what it is, if it's Hereford Street. From a distance, you can see them. And that was the approval, was for the 2 that were marginally visible. And then in terms of the rear elevation, again, the 2 heat pumps were proposed, and then 3 were actually installed, slightly different locations, but essentially in the same place. And again, with the similar visibility, same visibility as the mock-up showed, just 1 additional unit. The only other difference is obviously the doors and windows, and then the heat pump that was installed. And obviously they would like to keep all of that if they can. And that's basically it. These fellows can speak to exactly what happened and how it happened if you're interested in any of that, but we kind of are where we are.
I thought we discussed, I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, in the last meeting about returning that window to where it was supposed to be.
There
middle
wasn't a
window.
decision. There wasn't a final decision, and I guess that's why we're back here. So
I thought that was expressed that was a preference.
It was continued. And I don't think you met last month on it. So we're meeting again today. Joe, I'm just curious, you have in your recommendation approval for the dropping of the window into a door, assuming that all of the windows and doors are true divided light. Is that true?
Yes, and that does follow the design guidelines. The design guidelines allow for the enlarging of windows, provided that you're just dropping the sill down.
Right.
And that's what they've done here. And, this is a type of project that, I would have recommended, if we weren't talking about an addition, if this just came to us, I would have recommended approving this because it's consistent with the design guidelines.
Right. So we have multiple violations here, and I think that the violations committee should discuss them one at a time. Let's just start at the top. Tom, Genia, do you have a problem with the additional condenser on the roof?
No.
I'm
Tom?
not a member of this committee.
Oh, you're not?
No,
You're
but-
out.
No, I'm just, I'm here
Okay.
to, I'm here to.
I'm sorry, I thought you were a member.
Well, Tom, I'd like to
No.
hear your opinion, so go right ahead.
No, the additional, from my point of view, the additional condenser on the top, if it isn't any more visible, would seem to be acceptable.
Okay, so it sounds like Jeannie and I will make a decision on that. We're both in alignment that we can remove the violation associated with the additional condenser on the roof. Now, that brings me down to the ground floor. You have two more condensers. I assume they're suitcase style, split system condensers, given the size of them.
Yes, yeah, they're
and-
heat pumps, yeah.
They're heat pumps. So we have approved them on the ground floor in the past where they've been properly screened, which you've done a nice job of doing. And I'll just remind Genia that we approve them on the ground floor when the refrigerant line is too long in order for it for its peak performance. Some of these, depending upon the manufacturer, are 60 feet, 70 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet. I don't know if that's the case here, or that's why the HVAC engineer put them down on the ground floor.
Rob, I can speak up on that since I've kind of was managing the construction process. So, one of the things Guy mentioned when we went from 2 to 5, obviously not enough space on the roof. So we were contended with locating these units, and, granted, we were separating to 5 individual units. The run from the roof to all the way to the ground floor was not recommended by the mechanical contractor and could pose issues with these units. So that was one of the decisions that influenced us locating these 2 units for the lower 2 levels, because each of these basically, it's a 5-story building, about 1,000 square feet per floor plate. So it is a pretty large building. Each one of these serves 1,000 square feet. So the lower 2 units serve the lower 2 floors.
Right. So that makes sense. So Jeannie, I don't know how you feel about the heat pumps on the ground floor, shielded the way they are. Is that acceptable to you?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it as well. So that moves on to the window.
Well,
So
Rob, before that, should we note that they've agreed to correct the other roof violations, the screening and
yeah, they've
so it's
agreed to
clear.
remove the screening and install an iron railing where
and put the plants where the plants have been moved, just to have that on the record.
yeah. So when I go to make a motion, I can add those things. The window, I know there's some confusion between drawings submitted or not submitted and approvals and provisos. Joe has in his recommendation to approve the existing condition, even though they didn't have permission. I personally don't have an issue with it. I think it looks nice. I don't know how you feel, Jeannie, about that.
I don't know, I'm 50-50 on that because it looks fine, but I'm like, there was a lot of discussion, I think, at the time about, and it might have been at the original meeting, about not having that one be a door.
Right.
But I wonder if I might comment on
Oh,
that.
Tom, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah. When we approved, or when the commission approved this project, it concluded, and it was explicit, that this was an original unaltered rear facade. And consistent with what we've done in a number of other cases, not very many, because there aren't that many of them, but in ones that have come to the commission, we have consistently said, if there is an original unaltered facade, no changes in the masonry should be made. And so as a result, and I should point out that there's a house several doors down in the same group of houses, exact same design, where that was the decision made by the commission at 352 Marlborough. When the motion was made, there was one proviso, and that one proviso was that the rear addition was denied. There wasn't any additional proviso allowing staff or asking staff to approve changes. It was denied. And if they wanted to make any change from there being 2 windows and a door with the original masonry, they needed to come back and file an application. They didn't do that. And when you look at the actual permit, what's said in the permit, I frequently look at these permits when they have been filed, and this one wouldn't have caused any flag because it says, I'm going to read it, it's brief. Change of occupancy to single family interior building renovations per plans, including new plumbing, sprinkler, electrical, and HVAC systems, new elevator, all as shown on plans filed herewith, new roof hatch and new roof deck, no other exterior alterations except masonry repairs and window replacements.
Yeah.
The lowering of the left window, which shows on the plans, is described, at least on what was sent out for this meeting, as per provisos. There was no proviso allowing the lowering of that window, much less the other one. And I really believe that the committee should ask that this, or require that the bricks be restored to the original configuration, because otherwise we're going to set up a situation. We have approved alterations to rear facades when windows have been lowered. So now what was an original facade would not be, and additional changes could be made here, and it could be used as a precedent elsewhere.
But Tom, Joe has in his comments that at least one of them should be approved, saying that it does in fact meet the guidelines. And Joe, I don't know if you want to comment again on it.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, this is kind of a routine project that
We
is
would not,
consistent with the guidelines.
yeah, but Joe, I don't believe we have, in the least in the last 10 years, approved the lowering of a window on an otherwise original unaltered rear facade.
Hey, Tom, can I ask a question? Because this is coming up in the last few years, and it troubles me because you know, I've been involved with the commission for, I don't know, 35 years. I've been on subcommittees where the guidelines have been altered and we've made recommendations on the guideline alterations. And there was a whole round of revisions to the guidelines, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And I was involved in that whole process. It was a public process. Lots of different groups had their opportunities to weigh in on the changes to the guidelines. This whole thing, this whole notion of virgin rear facades is not in the guidelines. I've read them several times trying to find any reference to that. And there's nothing in the guidelines about that. And there's been no public process to have this conversation about preserving rear facades that have been unaltered as best as people can tell. I understand that the commission has changed its policy as they've behaved differently on these things, but there's been no public process about that, and there's absolutely nothing in the guidelines about that. So it's just troublesome to, you know, and I understand this is a very different condition because we're asking for permission here. We're apologizing and we've screwed up. And I get that, but the whole point of like this, you know, of absolutely you cannot touch an original rear facade is new. And that's never gone through the public process that it should go through. And I would strongly suggest that if that's going to be part of the guidelines, that there is a public process, that the guidelines be revised, and that there is no problem or concerns with precedent, because it would be then in the guidelines, it would have been approved, and everyone would have agreed upon it.
Well, Guy, the issue I have with what you're saying is that one may or may not agree with that, but the point was it was greatly discussed at the original meeting. And so I feel like this was an attempt to basically ignore what the instructions were at that meeting, which were very clear, and then say, let's just do it and see if we can get them to agree to it after the fact.
But
So the issue you're bringing up should not apply here because there was a lot of discussion and it was agreed to what was going to happen.
But I understand, but the discussion was
So-
not about making a minor alteration that has been approved many times in, you know, in the back by this commission. The discussion was about a two-story addition, which was fairly sizable, and that was denied. And I understand that. This is a very minor alteration that you can't see from anywhere unless you're on like the fourth floor of the building directly across the street. And this has been approved where it's much more visible. And we've got this approved.
It's only been approved where it's more visible, at least since in the last, I'd say, 8 years.
We just got one. We just got a pair of them approved at 291 Beacon Street by
That's
the
correct,
commission
because
on an upper
that
floor
was-
that you could see.
Okay, let Tom speak, please.
Yeah, and that's absolutely correct. And that was because that facade had already been altered. This is a new, if you go back, it's about 8 years ago, an opinion was issued that because it was an original facade, alterations allowing the creation of doors or modifying the doors or windows was not permitted. And since that time, and I was looking for it here, and unfortunately I don't have it, but since that time, the commission has been very consistent. There haven't been that many cases.
But is that in the guidelines, Tom?
What's in the guidelines is that you cannot expand the size of windows or doors.
In primary facades?
The guideline, specific guideline that Joe is citing says that the introduction of openings this is the part that is the guideline. The introduction of openings not characteristic in proportion or scaled and the blocking up of original openings is inappropriate. The lowering of sills on the rear elevation may be appropriate, provided that the head and side jamb conditions are preserved. It isn't right, it's may.
Right.
And the commission needs to approve it.
But there's no prohibition about it.
There's no prohibition.
And there's no prohibition about doing it in facades that have never been altered. That is not in the guidelines.
That has been the consistent application of this guideline for at least 6 or 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the commission the whole time. That's the approach. And again, I don't feel like I should be rewarding someone when it was very explicit and it was a big, long discussion about it. It just creates chaos and anyone's going to say, okay, we'll ignore what the commission said and then we'll try and get them to agree afterwards. I don't agree with that.
Yeah,
It's a lot cheaper to fix this than it is to move the HVAC units to the roof.
right.
Yeah, which we could be asking for. So I think, you know,
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we,
Yes. Say something.
I propose a compromise in light of the confusion with regards to the guidelines and precedents that may have been set.
I don't think there was any confusion. Rob. I just want to make that clear.
I mean, you have Joe's opinion stating that we should approve the dropping of these windows because we've done it in the past, whether the rear facades have been altered or not. I'm just trying to move on off of this so we can get to the.
No, I know, but I don't know what Joe really considered what happened at that prior meeting when there was a lot of discussion. So, and it was very clear what.
Could I suggest something? Is it a reasonable compromise and less painful for my client that we modified the middle window? And
I'd like to hear Rob's first since he started.
Thank you, Genia. That was going to be my suggestion that we allow the one on the left and he restores the middle window back to a window and remove the door configuration. That would be my suggestion in an effort to move off of this violation. And I guess it's between you and I, Genia. So I'm okay with that compromise. I don't know how you feel about it.
I don't know, Tom, what do you think? I mean, I'm still not. Convinced.
I'm troubled by that compromise. I think because what happened was a lowering of a window to a door was added to the plans, and that was never approved. That's the first one. Then it wasn't even built to the plans, and that's the second one. It's the original lowering that is also a problem. And so I think that the committee should simply ask that both windows be restored.
I think, Rob, I wouldn't feel so strongly about this if there hadn't been so much discussion. And I feel that this was just flying in the face of what was discussed and instructed.
Genia, there was no discussion about modifying window openings to doors at the original hearing. It was a very large rear addition that was discussed and denied. I mean, I understand what you're saying is that this was an intact rear facade, and that's why the addition was being denied. It was also denied because the guidelines say that two-story additions are generally inappropriate. But there was no discussion about modifying the masonry openings.
Hi, can I say something, please? Tom Callis here. I'm one of the developers. So we totally understand that this was a mess up. The middle window, should not have been replaced to a door. But in our view, like the left window that was approved by you know, we had plans showing that, and
It
you know,
wasn't
and they don't
approved.
want-
I can't find those drawings that that
Yeah,
Guy is
it
talking
was
about.
not
It
approved.
wasn't approved. I don't know what, that's what,
in I mean, we truly believe that it was shown on the plans. We had a, you know, the building permit, like, had those plans with those elevations, and we're taking full responsibility for this mess up, and we're like very apologetic for this. I'm just hoping that maybe there is like room for a compromise here, where, you know, we can, you know, restore the middle one, and, you know, keep the left one, which in our view, you know, was, and I guess, like, you know, the plans, there's, you know, Joe and Guy, there's some confusion on the plans, but we really believe that it was that left one was approved. So
I understand that you believe that, and I you know, it's sad that it's such a mess up in terms of the paperwork, but when you got the permit that said there are no exterior changes other than what was being done on the roof, wasn't that sort of a flag that maybe this is an exterior change?
Yeah, are you talking, Tom, are you talking about the building permit application?
Yes, the building permit.
Because there's drawings that are attached to the building permit that show that
if
it
those
shows,
drawings,
I'm sorry, Tom,
Sorry.
the drawings that were applied for the building permit show the door.
and they also, I gather, because it says on what you submitted with this set of drawings, that the rear is per provisos.
Yes,
It's not per provisos. There were no provisos that permitted that.
again,
So the plan checker is going to look at it and say, oh, well, that's okay, because it was per provisos.
One thing I can add, I know there was a concern that now that this change has been done, that we're going to be getting an application for an addition that might be viewed differently than
That's
the last
correct.
one was viewed. So I think, you know, if there is a future application for an addition, that certainly this will be discussed of what happened here.
Well, I think if you end up approving it, which I'm hoping you won't, yeah, you should do it with that caveat in it, with that proviso that this cannot serve as a precedent either for this project or for any other project, and that this should be considered a unaltered rear facade, even though it's altered. I mean, it's.
I had suggested the compromise because of three reasons. One is that this is not viewed from any public way. To Guy's point, you'd have to go to the third or fourth floor in the building across the alley to see this this condition in the rear facade and this rear yard. Two, to Guy's point, the guidelines might be a little ambiguous with regards to this situation. And three, the confusion over the submission to the BBAC to approve the door on the left. And it's because of those three reasons that I think that a compromise might be a feasible solution to this situation. And that was my proposal. And my proposal stands. So Jeannie, I don't know how you feel about it, but you and I are the only ones voting.
yeah, I know. I don't know. I still feel very upset about this. I just think that it's purposefully done to try and get around something. So I just feel like it's disingenuous, the position being taken, which is what bothers me.
Would you like to go to public comment?
Yeah, let's
and
go to
then-
public
Okay,
comments and
let
then,
me just get to my,
oh, sorry. So, I think Lori, you have your hand up.
oh, I'm just going to get the script up if I can find it.
Oh, I
Oops,
have to
not it.
save a thing, right?
See. Here we are. Okay.
Did
Can you see
find it?
that, Genia? Can you see that?
No, it's still Guy's, back, I can go to the,
Oh, you know what, Guy, can you stop sharing?
Sure.
okay. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. Okay, and then I think Lori might have been first.
Yep, Lori, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Genia. You saw my letter from December where I argued pretty similarly to Tom that I think this would set a very bad precedent. I live at 348 Marlborough Street in a similar building, and I remember that in 2008, when my downstairs neighbors applied to lower their windows, so they were redoing their kitchen, it was denied then because we had an original facade. So I don't know if that adds anything to the argument, but I thought I should let you know. Thank you.
Thanks. Sergey?
Thank you, commissioners, and good evening. I want to add here that we've been talking a little bit about plans, and some members of our committee actually went to the ISD and did get the original plan that was submitted to this project. And with this record actually is attached the recommendation and email that Joe sent to Guy actually regarding the approval. That email was sent on the 25th of February 2023. The plans that are at the ISD are similar to the plans that were shown here, not exactly identical because they don't show the air conditioning units on the roof, but the door is lowered on the left and there's a window in the middle. But the plan is dated from March 31st, 2023. So I don't think that Joe could have seen and approved the final version of this plan before he was actually submitted to the ISD, since he submitted the letter to the ISD and to Guy before that date. But the window there is a window there, definitely in the middle. So currently, I think we would consider that it would make sense that the commission at a minimum recommend to make the conditions to what was actually submitted for permit, and as a minimum, if not to put them completely in its state that was approved in front of the commission, and leave that to the commissioners. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Susan?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is a can of worms, and I think the sort of legal issue is, what did Joe see? Did he see the ISD plans at any point, or did he see other plans, or where are they? And I think that's why we're in such a mess. I think if you approve this, I think it sort of just says, go ahead and do what you want, ignore the commission, and if you're caught, it doesn't make any difference. And so I think there should be some penalty for misbehaving in this way. I don't recollect certainly any/many doors in the alleys that have three doors right next to each other. It doesn't seem to me like it's a common thing, although I have not done a study. 2 doors on either side, yes, with a window in the middle, but I think it looks very strange. And then one other random comment on the ground plane of the garden. I think that ceramic tile is going to be really hot, and would suggest that I think the trees will be a big help with that, and maybe more trees would be even more help. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sue. And then I believe Alice has her hand raised.
Yes, hi, thank you for letting me talk. I spoke up at the earlier meeting talking about how this is a intact facade that matches other facades in adjacent buildings. I also think I mentioned that far from being permanently invisible to everyone, there is purely a wooden fence at the moment. So in the future, there's no stopping anyone from opening that up or making it lower so they'd get more light or something. And then it would all be visible. So short of putting up a brick wall, which I don't want to, at this point, I agree that there should be consequences for flaunting the rules and taking advantage of Joe and, oh, he didn't notice. Well, let's go for it if that's indeed what happened. But without a paper trail that shows how it happened, I think we can stand our ground. And basically, this is an affront to all the work that has gone in to the last 50 years of trying to protect Back Bay so that it is the beautiful gem that it is now. So developers can cash in now. And, people are, making these incredibly luxurious houses now that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the work of all the people who have been behind this, who are mostly volunteers. So I am affronted by this because there's been a social compact that we all behave ourselves and then we get a beautiful Back Bay. Without that, if we're all just doing what we think is pretty and we get to do whatever we want, then Back Bay would look very, very different today than it looks today. So this makes me quite angry.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I see anyone else's hands up.
That's all the
Yeah.
public comment.
I just want to go back to Serge's comment. Serge, you said that you pulled the original plans from the building jacket at ISD, and it did show the addition of the door on the left side.
Oh, you know what? I have to unmute him.
Yeah. That would be consistent with what Guy and Tom are saying. Tom Callis.
Yeah. Correct.
Serge? Did you unmute him?
Yes, the door on the left is there on the plans to the ISD, and there is a window in the middle,
Okay.
Okay.
but there's no air conditioning on the roof.
But, and those plans were submitted after Joe's letter.
The plans is dated 31st of March 2023. And Joe's approval is, the email is sent on February 25th, 2023 at 2:16 p.m.
So the plans were written after the approval.
Can I chime in and just add some color to this comment?
Yes,
So,
and you are, I'm sorry.
and Guy, please correct me if I'm wrong. I know that the plans that you had were dated, I believe, December 2022, submitted to BBAC, although there's some confusion and can't find the email, but then we received approval from BBAC, and then we formally submitted our permit submission to ISD. So hence, why the date of submission of those drawings might be different, since that was the formal submission to ISD.
Well, and we couldn't obviously we couldn't file for the building permit until we actually got the certificate of appropriateness. So the process was we gave Joe, we submitted to Joe revised drawings to show that we had complied with the provisos, and whatever they showed, they showed. I wish and Joe references seeing those revised drawings and approving them, but neither one of us can figure out what he saw or what he got. I believe in my heart that it showed that extra door, that added door, and we were hoping that would be approved administratively by Joe in that process. Because there was no, there was no garden design, there was no design for that whole area down there. So I take responsibility for that, and I apologize for that happening. But that's what we assumed was the case, that Joe had seen that and had approved it, so we included it in the building permit set, and we filed for the building permit. So that was the whole, that's what took place.
Right.
And I'm not trying to blame Joe for this because it's not his fault. It's probably my fault, and I don't have a record of what I transshipped. I do have a copy of the drawing, and that's what we sort of hung our hats on. But it kind of is what it is. And if I can also just speak to a couple of the points, the point about the fence, you can't take the fence down without commission approval. It's no different than a brick wall. It's the same thing. You can't make those alterations without this commission approving it. The developer is willing to do whatever it takes, you know, to get this done, and they're already spending money to make changes to what they did inappropriately. So there is punishment here, and it is painful for them to have to go back to a completely finished building and tear a bunch of things apart. And they're willing to do that. And they're also willing to do whatever else they can do in terms of planting or, you know, mitigation in the garden to make everyone happy. And there's been some discussion, I guess, between Thomas and Laurie, and she didn't mention this, but you know, but she was grateful apparently with the offer, and they're willing to work together. Apparently, there's a couple of trees that have been taken out of the alley, and these folks are more than willing to plant some trees and do some mitigation back there to, you know, to get some good faith here as well, you know, to make this happen. So, you know, we would appreciate it if there was a way to do this. It's important in terms of the development to be able to have access to the garden from the room. And that's the reason that Thomas is you know, trying so hard to be able to keep that, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to be able to keep that one door.
Yeah.
So that's,
And
you know,
I-
again,
I echo on behalf of the development team, I echo Guy's comments. You know, we certainly do not try to skirt the rules. You know, our reputation is very important to us. We do a lot of work in the Back Bay and historic districts, not only Back Bay, South End, Bay Village. You know, we do everything we can to present the work to the Landmarks Commission and get everything approved. You know, although we are focusing on a couple items that were not done correctly here, and we recognize those mistakes, and we're removing items such as the roof deck fencing. You know, there's a lot of things that were done correctly. You know, there was a window added to the front dormer. That was something we submitted. So we are certainly not trying to skirt the rules. You know, it's an unfortunate situation here where, you know, in the removal of the addition, there seems to have been some mix up. But this situation that has been created is certainly not example of us. I truly mean this, of us trying to skirt the rules. At the end of the day, we're trying to create something that's beautiful, that's appropriate for the Back Bay district, that complements the historic architecture. And we truly feel like the current as-built condition reflects that. And honestly, this is my own opinion, removing even the middle door will worsen that condition. So I'll leave it at that.
So there seems to be a hand raised. There's no name on it. It's just.
All right. We did
It's
close public
JB
comment.
16 PMAX.
So hello, JB16. Do you want to make a comment?
Oh, hi, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm on a mobile phone. That's why it's probably not showing my name. I'm Jas Bogle. I live at 327 Commonwealth Avenue, and about a block away from this property. And I've seen the property transform, and it actually looks very elegant. And having screening around the condenser is a welcome change. You know, I've seen even my neighbors, other developers who put condensers out there which are uncovered, and it's a nuisance, and I kind of encourage screening of it. And for the developer to put trees in the back is also a very welcome gesture. I mean, being a neighbor, I would love to see more trees and more greenery and screening of ugly mechanicals. You know, those are basically my comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I guess, Joe, moving back to Rob.
Yeah, so I guess I'm ready to make a motion, but since it's only one other person voting, I really want to talk to you about this. I mean, my motion will include restoring the middle window to a window and leaving the door on the left, only because there's so much confusion and ambiguity here between the building permit, the construction documents, the BBAC, the architect, the developer. I just, you know, I kind of feel bad. You know, if I don't want my motion to fail, but at the same time, I just think it's fair in light of the circumstances. And of course, my motion will be without precedent. It will not set a precedent in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. All right, well, I agree with there appears to have been some ambiguity between what Joe got and what he saw and everything. So on that basis, and that's the only reason I'm agreeing to this.
Okay, so
Because otherwise I'd be saying, put them both back.
all right, Joe, I'm ready to make a motion.
Yep, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, my motion is to approve the installation of the third heat pump on the roof, to approve the heat pumps that are located on the ground floor because they are properly screened. And to remove the wood screening and replace it with cast iron railings or leave it as is, to relocate the pots that were inappropriately installed on the roof, and for the applicant to work with the garden club of the Back Bay on finding suitable trees for the rear yard. And that this motion by no means creates a precedent for the lower rear facade elevation.
Either for this project or for any other.
Yes, for this project and for any other.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. So, Gina Dimitriadis
Yes.
and Rob Weintraub.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So I'll be following up with you, Guy, and we can have a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you all very much. We
Second.
All right.
greatly appreciate your consideration.
Thanks
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So I think Kathy is here.
I am.
Hi, Kathy. Welcome. And
I will cede the floor.
Thank you, Gina. All right, so good evening, everyone. I am calling this Back Bay Architectural Commission public hearing to order at 5:25 p.m. on February 12, 2025. You may participate in this hearing by going to our Zoom meeting link in our agenda posted online at https://www.boston.gov. Public notices 163-135-41, or by calling 301-715-8592 and entering ID 964059696 hashtag. You can also submit written comments or questions to Back Bay AC at boston.gov. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this hearing online to ensure public access to the deliberation of the Back Bay Architectural Commission. The public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. And if you are calling in and cannot use a platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the Commission's purview.
all right, so commissioners present, we have Kathy Connor, Rob Weintraub, Gina Dimitriadis, Tom High, Franklin Ross, and Tanvi Nair. Have I missed anyone? No.
And we have our first application. It's 136 Newbury Street, and it's 25.0512 BB. Is there someone here for 136 Newbury, please?
I think Dan is here, but I just need to make sure he is co-host. He dropped it in out. Okay. All right, Dan Brennan, you should be able to unmute yourself.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. My name is Daniel Brennan. I'm a permit and license consultant. I also actually have the architect on the call as well, Andy S. Brooks. I don't know if you see him there, Joe, if you could let him in.
Yep, I think I just made him a co-host.
Great.
All right, so before we start, I'm just going to read my staff comments. Staff notes that 136 Newbury Street was originally constructed as a single-family row house in 1877 and converted into a 4-story commercial building in the early 20th century. The existing storefront was approved by the commission in 2022. The applicant has revised the proposed design to retain the existing center glass and repaint the surround to match the surrounding sandstone. The right side light fixture will be replaced with a blade sign. So this project has changed from when I first scheduled it for a hearing. At that time, the front window pane was, several panes were going to be replaced for one single pane, and that work is not going to happen anymore. There was a proposed wall sign, and instead of the wall sign, a blade sign is being proposed instead, and that will be located where there is a light fixture. And the reason for that is, it's my understanding, the landlord for the building was not in favor of any additional penetrations into the masonry. So by removing that light, they can reuse the penetration into the masonry for the sign. So I think with that, Dan, I will turn it over to you, and I can, I have your presentation right here. Just tell me when to move forward.
Sure, thank you. So this is for a new retail store called Mono's. It's a Canadian travel lifestyle brand. And they basically sell luggage. And so we're going to be doing some minor modifications here. We actually do have a sign and a sign band that's going up. That's one piece. Another thing we're doing here is painting the mullions to match the exterior sandstone masonry. And we're also proposing to, so we're looking over on the right-hand side, that would be our entrance door. So we're going to install a new ADA door opener, similar to what's existing on the left-hand side, replacing the two planters. Just above the ADA door operator would be where our illuminated blade sign would be. And I think that's all that's happening on the front facade here. Like I said, way above the big window is going to be a new sign band sign. Next slide, please, Joe. These are just references to the color to match the sandstone masonry. It's called aesthetic white. And those are just some specs on the outdoor light fixture and the planter that we're replacing.
Or
And
it's
these
a pair
are,
of planters. We're symmetrical, keep them symmetrical. Yep.
yeah, thank you, Andy. Feel free to chime in when you want, Andy. So these are just the existing conditions photos. You can see on the left-hand side door, they have the ADA door operator. We're simply doing the same thing on the other side. And we're replacing that light fixture on the right-hand side door with our blade sign. And then the left-hand side light fixture will be replaced with new. Next slide, please. These are just some photos of the interior. Back when we were replacing the window with one full pane of glass. In discussions, we thought it might be something that we could show since it's going to be visible to the outside. So this is the existing condition as it is inside. There's really not going to be much to see when we renovate it. It's going to be just a retail luggage store. Next slide, please. So we are replacing two units up on the roof. It's not visible from the line of sight. It's up on this above on the second story. Basically, we're adding two RTUs and a ventilator for air, right, Andy?
Yes. Yeah, we have to add the ventilator because the current space doesn't meet the current energy and ventilation codes. So we're required to add that. And then we're going to maintain two of those small condenser units, but with the change of use from business to retail, we need additional cooling. So hence we're adding those two VRF units in the back there.
It's those rectangular units right in the center. Okay, next slide, please. This is just a section of the building, and you can see the roof and our units, and just kind of get a better feel. You can see it's out of the line of sight if you're on the ground in the rear alley. Next slide. And these are just signage details. There's an aluminum backing that's going to be painted the same color as the facade brick, the sandstone, and then the mono's lettering is going to be backlit white.
Yeah, it's a halo lit sign, basically.
And this is our blade sign. It's smaller than it looks. It's 18 by 10, just going right up above the door. And again, it'll be backlit as well.
Next to the door, it's going.
Yeah, it'll be a kind of a dark gray face with a push through vinyl for the logo illuminated.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think commissioners have any questions or comments.
And one of the questions may be, Joe, I think you alluded to it earlier, as to why they're presenting in front of us, because things seem to be aligned pretty much. The question was really about the glass, as you had mentioned when it was presented. There were 3 panes of glass, and then it ended up that wasn't possible, so it ended up coming back in front of us, and we're taking a look at the roof. If anyone has any comments on the roof, if anybody has comments on the blade sign, I think those are the areas perhaps that we can put out there.
I had just a question, which is probably outside the scope of this. In the NAB letter, there was a drawing which showed the desirability of lowering, doing either cast stone or something to connect the left and right at the top of the window, at the top of the large window, with the space above the 2 smaller windows. Right now, it's sort of punched in there, and I don't know whether it's possible to insert something that matches so that so it looks like the cast stone carries across with the bottom of the cast stone aligned with the top of the window frame. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. There was a drawing in the NAB write-up that illustrated that.
See, signage too, I think, the proposed signage, it might change the eye line also.
Yeah, right now they're not proposing any alterations to the window. It's just a repainting.
So I guess this is not something we can do at this time. So
I think the applicant took careful consideration to meet the guidelines. Certainly the sign color and size on the sign band is consistent, and then the blade sign is pretty small. Probably just replaces the lantern light that was there. And of course, we have to allow ADA apparatus so that handicapped people can access the door with ease. So I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Let's go to public comment then. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which include landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside the commission's purview. And Serge, I see that you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, again, and thank you, Kathy. Tom, Commissioner High already mentioned basically the portion below at the top of the window, because the window seems to be a little bit over proportion to fit in an opening. there, but this one's one of the points that we did mention in our report that could be an improvement that could be done to this project. There is a second point also regarding the blade sign. I believe that even Joe mentioned this as his comment to look at a more traditional one, maybe an hanging blade sign. So I'm curious if the commission has an opinion on that front. Because what we did look during our review with the applicant is we think that a blade sign that would be as the height of the light right now seems to be a little bit low compared to where a blade sign would normally be, which would be probably a little bit higher. So there's just that aspect of if the blade sign will look a little bit low compared to the door if it's there. So just a point for the commissioner to take in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge.
I think, I can't speak for the applicant, but if the owner's desire is not to introduce any additional masonry openings in the front facade, then putting the blade sign where the light fixture is now would certainly be more beneficial than introducing new openings in the masonry. And I think that's why they have it there, so they don't have to introduce new openings in the masonry.
Well said.
Yep,
I would like to add that we do have a fire department Siamese connector coming right out of the ground there as well, which will help avoid any height clearance issue. Although it is high enough, I think, for height clearance. I think it's over 7 feet. It still will be an added thing of protection from any customer walking and hitting their head if should they be that.
Very tall customers.
Yeah. I might add as well that actually our original proposal, we didn't quite have the existing lights on the left-hand side of the storefront quite accurately. So it appeared that the blade sign was actually higher, but we've corrected that on this proposal. So we're aligning basically with the existing lighting, so that we felt that kind of addressed the NAAB comment about that. We were looking to address that. So
thank you. And Sue, I see you have your hand up.
I do. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm fond of the idea of adding a little something at the top of that very large display window to balance out what you have on the bottom. The surrounds on the smaller windows are so nice. I know we can't require it, but I would encourage the architect to take a look at it and see if there's something simple that could just add a little bit of depth above the big window. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I don't see any other hands. Do we have any comments, Joe, that came through?
Nope, no other comments.
Then let's go back to Rob with his.
My motion is for approval as submitted.
Second.
Okay. Kathy Connor,
Yes.
Rob Weintraub,
Yes.
Genia Dimitriadis,
Yes.
Tom High,
Yes.
Franklin Ross,
Yes.
and Tom Nair.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Joe,
Right.
for all your help.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank
Yep.
you very much. That was our only application, but we're moving on to an advisory. You want to do the advisory before I guess we can go right into that. Okay. For 124 Beacon Street. And do we have someone here for 124 Beacon Street, please?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Jahan Mohabali. I'm the unit owner, and I have my architect, Josh Slater. He's on the line as well.
Wonderful. Welcome.
All right. I'll just give some quick comments and then I'll turn it over. Staff notes that 124 Beacon Street is a 5-story stone row house built between 1859 to 1860. The upper level of the rear elevation is a later addition. In October 2023, the Commission reviewed an application to reconstruct the exterior wall at this location and reposition the roof. After discussing the visibility of the area of the building and the design materials of the elements of this area of the building, the Commission voted to continue the application to a future meeting. with a mock-up of the current proposal to be erected, increased detail to be provided on the proposed materials and window selection, and alternate fenestration options to be presented. So there was a mock-up that was put in place, and I just, I went out on Tuesday to take some photos. I know it was cold and all of you probably didn't have a chance to go out. So this is the building here. This is part of the area that we're talking about where you see these existing slider windows. So this is what you see from Back Street. Here's another view from Back Street. So this is the roof that will being proposed to be repositioned, where it does become, where you do get visibility. And here's the building here is looking from the footbridge, and this is how you actually experience. And I just zoomed in my camera so you can get a better idea of what the area is. So it's this roof here and these windows. And I don't think there's kind of a shadow, but you did have your mock-up in place, and I think you have a few images of that. And this is what you see from the Esplanade when you viewing the building. So I will stop sharing so you can share your screen, and let me find Josh so I can make him a co-host. Okay, Josh, you should be able to share your screen if you would like.
Joe, I'm going to share my screen. Is everybody able to see these slides now?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Great. Thank you so much. So as Joe mentioned, this is a project that was originally presented back in October of 2023. The scope of the project includes the rear sliders here, the rear wall of the middle floor of the unit, as well as the pitched roof, which is not visible from the street. And the specific issues that we're attempting to address here are that the ceiling heights of the 10th floor are not to code. By changing the pitch of the roof, we'll be able to bring those ceiling heights to building code. The entire pitched portion of the roof is approaching the end of its life with multiple rounds of patchwork and previous interior leaks and water damage, which will be addressed by this renovation. And there's also poor insulation value to the roof itself and the rear sliders, which are single panes, not glazed. This is an overhead aerial view, just demonstrating this is Beacon Street here, Back Street in the back, and you can see the unit that we're talking about is entirely contained within the rear of the building. This is a view from the corner of Beacon and Berkeley as Berkeley goes on to Starrow here. You cannot see any of the unit here. All you see is this is the elevator overrun for the entire building, but none of the rear penthouse unit is visible from this vantage point. This is again looking from a similar vantage point. Here you can see the west facade or the west elevation of the rear unit, this brick wall. This will not be altered at all, but it just shows you that there's very little, again, that is visible from Beacon or Berkeley. As we move towards Starrow Drive here, Back Street, ahead of us, there's the Fiedler footbridge, as Joe mentioned. We can see that the area that we're talking about addressing is contained within the yellow border here, those sliders at the rear wall. So this is the kind of the main point of what we're approaching and proposing here. So we have the view of the unit here. Again, this is not a street view. Obviously from the street, this is much less visible. This is more of a head-on view. You can see there's an opening that currently consists of 4 sliders with 4 matching transoms above it. And there's a pitched portion of the roof here with 2 small skylights. There's a vertical rise portion of this back wall here. And what we are proposing to do is to maintain the exact same size of the opening in the wall here, but to eliminate the transom and have full height sliding glass doors. Currently, These windows and doors are painted white. It's white wood that is in various states of decay. And it's a bit of an eyesore, as you can see from the picture. When we do the renovation, we would be painting this black to match the trim of the rest of the building to make it much less conspicuous. Another reason for this design change is that between the parapet walls and where the casing of the opening starts, there is currently slate shingles or slate tiles. However, the transom windows go right up to the underside of the eave. To gain a bit of height in the roof here and also to make this more pleasing from a design sense, we're proposing continuing this border of slate over the top of the opening in a dimension that is consistent with the dimensions on the side. So this is 1 foot 4 inches on either side. We're proposing adding 1 foot 4 inches of the slate here, and this will raise the roof line here, as you can see, carried across to the existing design. And then the rear portion of this roof, which is currently pitched, is going to be pitched a bit more to basically come and meet this portion of the roof. In profile, this is what it looks like. The red line demonstrates the exterior shell existing conditions, and you can see what we're proposing. We're raising this front portion by 1 foot 4 inches. We're raising the rear portion, and that alters the pitch of the roof slightly, and we are adding some larger skylights. The existing sight line from the street is denoted by the dashed blue line.
How high is you said the measurement in the front. What is the increase in the pitch in the back?
Josh, do you know the measurement off the top of your head?
I think it goes to 1.4. I don't know the exact number, but I can get that for you in a second. Give me 1 second. But yeah, I don't know it off the top of my head.
This is again kind of zoomed in here. This is the 1 foot 4 inch that we're talking about. This is the mock-up that I put on the parapet wall there. You can see the front portion will be raised that 1 foot 4 inches. The caution tape denotes what the new pitch of the roof will be and where it joins the existing wall and the roof.
I could just chime in on the roof slope. So the existing roof slope is 2.5 to 12, and it goes to about 5 to 12. So it's roughly double.
Okay.
This is looking at the other parapet wall. Again, we're proposing raising the pitch here, so this back portion will be raised up to here.
And it's all below the party walls.
Correct. It is all below the party walls, the parapet walls. And just to put this in perspective, I showed a zoomed in view, but obviously this is the 10th level, the 10th floor of this building. So I'm far above the street level. These are just pictures, again, taken from those vantage points that we discussed before, but the mock-up that I put in is actually in place in these photos. And as you can see, it is not visible from Back Street. These are some 3D renderings that are to scale, demonstrating kind of an aerial view and then also the view from Back Street. Again, these are taken from a vantage point that is to scale from the back of the building. And then finally, I have these images demonstrating where the sliders are from the esplanade and essentially right at the edge of the lagoon. And that is all I have to show.
Any comments, commissioners?
Well, this is not an original penthouse. I assume this penthouse was added after the building was built.
Absolutely, for sure, yeah.
So I guess that gives you a little bit more leeway. I personally don't like the sliders. You know, you're replacing one bad condition with another. You've got too much. You have too many. There's too much glazing going on. It's the old design is inconsistent with the guidelines. The new design is inconsistent with the guidelines. And I'm wondering if there's a way you can add some mullions or stronger mullions in between these doors and get away from the sliding configuration and more of a
French door
situation with strong mullions would probably bode well for you when it comes time to getting approval for this. Just you get way too much glazing. You have a storefront approach to this, which is completely and totally inappropriate for the Back Bay.
I agree with you completely, Rob.
Oh, it'd be the first time, Tom.
No, we usually agree.
If I may sort of add something to that, I completely understand where the commissioners are coming from. One goal is to attempt to maintain the view of the Charles River and the Esplanade with this. And so both to make it more aesthetic and to break it up a bit more, we went from 4 panels to 5 panels. I think that if we were to add muttons or mullion bars throughout the whole thing, it would kind of, I guess, defeat the purpose of what the renovation is trying to accomplish. Would it be useful or helpful to add transoms back?
I don't. The transom configuration is problematic, to say the least. I think what you're attempting to, is this like an accordion door where one panel slides over another panel, slides over another panel?
The 3 middle panels would be sliding. Currently, the way the configuration stands is that the lateral panels are fixed. The middle 2 panels slide to accordion onto the lateral panels. Here we would be modifying it so that the middle 3 panels would slide and the lateral panels would remain fixed again.
Okay. Well, I think, your point regarding the view of the water is noted, but it would be slightly diminished if you added the stronger mullions. It wouldn't be diminished so much so that it would defeat the purpose from doing it all together. I would strongly encourage you to look at this carefully, and come up with a design that's a little bit more consistent with our guidelines when it comes to this storefront type of system that you're proposing. That's just my opinion. I don't think you're going to get very far with what you're proposing, and that you should look seriously at the guidelines and work with Joe to come up with something that is a little bit more consistent.
It sounds like commissioners are supportive of the roof pitch change. So it sounds like it's really the details of some options for the treatment of these sliding windows.
Joe, do you have a view on the pitch?
I think it's fine. I think it's going to be so difficult to tell there's been a change from the way you experience it, especially since it's not blocking any more sky. It's just blocking existing building. And again, the fact that it's not going beyond the party wall, I think you're not going to, when you experience, again, we have these zoomed in views, but that's not how you really experience the views of the building. And it's, it would only be from the footbridge or from the,
Can I just ask, as an architect?
I don't have an issue, but sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask to probe that a little bit to make sure we understand the commentary in terms of the sliders. So thank you for the commentary around the roof. In terms of the sliders themselves, and I get what everyone's saying. Is the concern again? We know the guidelines. Is it a function of the lack of transom now? Is it the lack of differentiation vis-a-vis buttons? I just want to understand exactly what you guys are thinking in terms of what would make this more palatable to people. Again, I get it. I just want to understand what would be the best direction to go with the sliders.
Well, I think the elimination of sliders altogether would be a start in the implementation of doors. True divided light wood doors. You'd have to study the pane configuration to make it a little bit more consistent. You have an opportunity here to take what is arguably a horrific eyesore in Back Bay. I mean, if you just look at the picture on the left, I mean, how this ever got, obviously this happened before the commission was formed.
Well, we agree, obviously, but.
Yeah, so you have an opportunity to mitigate the the disaster that occurred when this thing was installed. And I really think you should take advantage of doing something that's a little bit more architecturally consistent with our guidelines and Back Bay as a whole. You've got a wonderful opportunity here to mitigate this loss. And I think you're replacing something that's really aesthetically not pleasing with something that's even more unpleasing. And I think that you should concentrate on the door configuration. I think you'd probably get a consensus and approval for the increased pitch on the roof to get more ceiling height, and then the skylights, which are practically not visible. You should concentrate your effort on working with Joe and coming up with a solution that is less of a storefront and more consistent with Back Bay.
Right. I do also, I think that the pitch is good from the standpoint that it does allow the area above the doors, as you were describing, which does make it a lot more architecturally pleasing than having the doors come right up to where the roof begins. And so the pitch makes you able to do that, which is good.
I'm in favor of the pitch as well, and also improving the upper floor to code. Would agree with Rob on the opportunity to improve the space, and as he mentioned, to by doing that, getting the pitch which will then get you additional square footage, by code. So those are my comments.
Just one question. I'm not sure what the height of this building is, but I think it may be over height for the zoning. And you're making a change in the height, not to the highest point, but you are making a change. Do you have any zoning issues? Have you had a zoning expert look at this in terms of height?
I mean, we're not changing the height of the building, so I don't think this would trigger that.
You might check on that, only because if the building is currently over 65 feet, which I think it may be, then when you're modifying it to change the height of any part of it, it may, and I'm not a zoning person, but it may trigger something, and you probably should try to find that out before you find out too late.
Yeah, and that was obviously part of our calculus. I mean, we'd love to raise the whole thing in various ways, but yeah, obviously not changing the penthouse, not changing other aspects of it. But understood.
Any other comments, commissioners?
Shall we open it up to public comment? Yeah, Josh, or if you could stop sharing, and I just need to bring my screen up. Okay. Okay, there's our script.
All righty. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you may press *9 to raise your hand, or you may send your questions to staff via email at backbayac@boston.gov. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person and should be focused on a project's exterior architectural features, which includes landscaping. Issues related to use, street traffic, and noise are outside of the commission's purview. And Serge, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Kathy. So we did have a chance to review this with our committee of NAB last week, and the applicant came, and we had a chance to discuss, but the plans were slightly different that we reviewed then. We think that the plans that we had probably last week was probably a little bit better in terms of proportion in our view. Compared to this one. Also, when we were discussing, there was this intent to go to a 9 feet, but now it looks like it's 9 feet, 10 inch, which is almost 10 feet high. I would obviously, like the commissioners mentioned, there was several even penthouse that had suggested similar glassy type of sliding doors. And these penthouses are not visible from absolutely anywhere from the ground, and that were denied and were replaced by French doors. In this case, we are in the opinion of what the commission was voicing at the moment, that alternatives that would be more door-like would probably be more appropriate and more in line with the guidelines. Regarding the pitch, we had the exact same opinion, that the pitch being not invisible and bringing the building to code, we don't see a problem with the skylight that are invisible and the pitch raising. But we think that better framing the proportion and probably also going here to 5 panes, I think just increase the disproportion of very tall pane glass and doesn't really represent I would say the character of buildings around that would be for that type of construction. So we echo here a little bit the opinions that have been voiced by the commission as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge. Joe, do we see any other hands, or do we have anyone now submitting to read?
No other comments.
Okay, then I hope this has been helpful, gentlemen. And any last words, commissioners, that you want to add anything here? Okay, so gentlemen, I hope this has been helpful, and we'll look forward to seeing next steps.
Great.
It has. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Of course. All righty, shall we move on, Joe, to the administrative review? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Right, Kathy Connor,
Yes.
Rob Weintraub,
Yes.
Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
Tom High,
Yes.
Franklin Ross,
Yes.
and Tom Benayer.
Yes.
Great. And how about ratification of the does it say 1/8? No.
Yeah, 1/8.
Or 1/8, okay, 1/8/2025 public hearing minutes.
Move approval.
Motion to approve.
I think that was Gina and Tom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Competing.
All right. Kathy Connor,
Yes.
Rob Weintraub,
Abstain.
Gina Dimitriadis,
Yes.
Tom High,
Yes.
Franklin Ross,
Yes.
and Tom Benayer.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And Joe, what about staff updates?
Yeah, just a quick update. We had a very productive subcommittee meeting at 18 Commonwealth Avenue. That project to restore the facade is moving forward, and we selected a sample to be used for the cast stone for the facade. So there'll be one more virtual subcommittee meeting just to hammer out all the final details on that. So that's the subcommittee's been Kathy, Tom, and Susanna. So that's been good to see that project move forward. And those are all my updates.
Wonderful. Then should we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Right. And all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening. Happy Valentine's Day.
And to
Two.
you.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.